Start of training camp around the NFL. We welcome you to NFL Total Access. Hello, everybody. I'm Rhett Lewis here with you. And in Patriots training camp, the headline that will dominate in Foxborough come July 27th features two words: quarterback competition. A battle between incumbent starter Cam Newton and first-round draft pick Mac Jones. And according to our Mike Giardi, Jones fast-tracked this spring and early summer into a complex offense and did not blink. Meanwhile, Cam Newton's slow to find his rhythm, one that eventually came on the very last day of offseason work before training camp. Mike Giardi now setting the scene for us as a clash for QB1 Week 1 in New England looms.
For the first time in a long time, the Patriots had a rookie quarterback come into OTAs and mandatory minicamp and make a big impact. Mac Jones did not disappoint with that first-round status, showing the ability to be accurate in short to intermediate areas. But just as important, pick up the offense quickly. That playbook has been 20-plus years in the making, and Jones showed very little hesitation with it. So when one of his offensive teammates told me Mac sees the game the way offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels sees it, couldn't help but think we're going to have a real quarterback competition in New England come training camp in July. Now, of course, Cam Newton is the incumbent starter, but he had an uneven season last year. There were 3 or 4 high moments for him, big games, but overall, he lacked the consistency necessary, the consistency that the Patriots want from that position. Basically, he gave them average play. They need more than that. He's going to be in a tooth-and-nail fight with the rookie, Mac Jones, if he wants to maintain that job and show he has mastered that Josh McDaniels offense.
All right, continuing the Patriots quarterback competition now, welcoming in our quarterback, David Carr, our former NFL exec, Mark Ross. Guys, great to be here with you. David, let's start simply here. If this is a true competition, what do you feel like ultimately sets Cam Newton and Mac Jones apart in this thing?
Yeah, Rhett, they couldn't stylistically be any different. I think that when you look at what they're doing in New England, what they did on offense as far as free agent signing, they spent $250 million in free agency. You look at the tight ends, they brought in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, Kendrick Bourne, you got receivers added. So they're going to be better on offense. So Cam's numbers maybe were skewed there a little bit because of the lack of just maybe ability on the outside and surrounding him. So when you look at the competition, how does this shake out? I hope they figure it out early because it's just so different. They're going to have to game plan and build their offense around the quarterback they choose. And Cam, looking at him running the football, I mean, he was 40% of their offense as far as touchdowns go. That's the highest rate in the entire league for any player other than Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara was 36%. So that gives you an idea of how important he was, even though their offense wasn't as strong as they wanted. But Mac Jones, for him to supplant a guy like Cam Newton with those new weapons around him, he's going to have to be extra special. And it sounds like he is. And from the processing standpoint, he might be able to come in and really push to say, we don't need all those rushing yards from Cam. I can do it from the pocket. But you're looking at Julian Edelman here and Cam Newton. I mean, if you give him some guys, Julian Edelman had a record-breaking performance with Cam Newton, not with Tom Brady. So that's why it's so intriguing to me how this thing's going to shake out, because he has so many good players around him now. Is he going to be that Cam Newton that we've seen in the past, Mark? Is he going to be a guy that maybe doesn't have it anymore, and now you have a rookie come in and jump you? So, man, it's going to be really interesting training camp.
Yeah, David, I think the presence of Cam Newton is carrying him more than the actual play of Cam Newton. And he did struggle last year. The Patriots did all they could in the offseason, specifically in the tight end position, as you mentioned, with Smith and Henry, to try to replicate what Cam was with Greg Olsen to kind of keep the ball in the middle of the field. The receivers are still subpar there with the Patriots. And I don't see the ability with Cam on tape to kind of push it downfield. The concern is I think Cam may be done. And Cam Newton's been one of my favorite players to scout and evaluate, one of the most dominant players in the NFL, but it looks like he's kind of hit the wall. So it may lead them to having to bench Cam, which would lead to Mac Jones having to get inserted there, maybe not actually taking the job, but getting inserted there. And let's not forget, Mac Jones only had 17 starts at Alabama. So he's not really battle-tested like most first-round quarterbacks are, despite the rave reviews in training camp, David. As you know, he still has to play in games, and it could be a whole entirely different world once he starts getting into game situations. And what is the expectations for the Patriots? Are they looking at this as a Super Bowl team, as a 500 team, as a playoff team? Let's win the AFC East. So everyone in that organization has to say, what is our expectations for this year? Because as a whole, whether it's Cam or Mac, I don't see a Super Bowl contender. I see more like a 500 type of team maybe sneak into the second spot there in the AFC East.
Well, $250 million committed certainly feels like the expectations are a little higher than an 8-9 or 9-8 record in the middle of the league here. So we'll continue to follow that quarterback competition. Certainly look forward to it kicking off in earnest when the Patriots report to camp July 27th. No question who the QB will be week 1 for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray building off his Rookie of the Year campaign, nearly leading Arizona to the postseason in 2020. And according to General Manager Steve Keim, speaking to the Cardinals website, confidence at a real high point for him, both with Murray and the team in general. So, guys, when we're thinking about the Cardinals now out there in the highly competitive NFC West, David, looking at Kyler Murray in particular, where do you think you could see the most growth, the most development now heading into his 3rd season?
Well, it's really the consistency that I want to see. And I don't know if it's necessarily just on Kyler. I think that when you watch him play, he's doing a lot of things that a guy like Pat Mahomes is able to do, where he can buy a lot of time in the pocket. He can create running lanes for himself, and he's a lot of their offense. He's a lot of the reason that they're able to, just efficiently move the ball down the field when they do have success. The run game wasn't really consistent. A lot of it was just him making incredible plays. So I think that when you look at a team like Kansas City, who, for me, you have similar quarterbacks in their ability. What does Kansas City have? They have, kind of created just automatic offense every week. And Andy Reid has always done a brilliant job of just kind of having that for his quarterback. And I think that they can do some more of that. So I think it's really on Cliff Kingsbury and that offensive staff to create more offense and make it simpler so that he doesn't have to make the wow play, every time he's on the field to get points out of a drive. And I think that's where they can really improve as a team.
Yes. Kyler Murray, I agree. He's one of the most unique playmakers at the quarterback position in any position in the NFL. But as you mentioned, David, their whole offense and studying them last year was just kind of, hey, Kyler, go do it for us. And for Cliff Kingsbury, apparently being the offensive guru, they have one of the most basic offenses that I watched. There is minimal creativity. Not much motion at all. For example, DeAndre Hopkins, as magnificent as he is, he lined up in the same exact spot wide left in the formation 81% of the time, and he lined up on the left side 91% of the time. And when you have a playmaker like that and you stick him in one spot, that makes it easy for defensive coordinators to game plan against him. What you want to do as a creative offensive coordinator is move him around to create mismatches and create problems for defensive coordinators so that they're worried all night about it, not having to go into a game saying, we know where DeAndre is, we can stop it. So really the onus for me is on Cliff Kingsbury to get better, to get more creative and get more unique in what he's doing with his unique playmaker at the quarterback position and one of the most dominant players in the league in DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, those percentages kind of remind me of what we used to see when Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, and Reggie Wayne were running together with the Colts, right? You could count on where those guys were going to line up, but they certainly made it work. Interesting to see if the Cardinals can figure that out this year for sure. They got J.J. Watt in the fold now to help fortify that defense. Let's see, Watt here. Is this a lookalike? Check out Matt Batts here, West Liberty.
Yikes.
So was J.J. Watt pulling double time this whole time? Can I copy your homework? Yeah, just change up a little bit so it doesn't look like a copy. Nice work there. J.J. Watt responding to the lookalike. And some heartfelt tributes for Demaryius Thomas, who announced his retirement today. And, of course, he was one of Watt's former teammates in Houston, 5-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl 50 champion. Demaryius Thomas retiring, 10-year career highlighted early on by catching that pass you're seeing right there from Tim Tebow, walk-off winner in the playoff win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. That exploded during Peyton Manning's record-setting tenure when they were together in Denver.
DT, Peyton here. Congratulations on an incredible NFL career. It was an honor and a privilege to play with you, to be your teammate. Always had great respect for your toughness, your work ethic, your fearlessness across the middle, your ability to make big catches in big games, and never played with anybody as big and strong and powerful and as fast as you. So I wish you all the best in this next chapter, and job well done, pal. All the way from Atlanta to Georgia Tech to the Denver Broncos. Man, you did it the right way at the highest of levels, and you did it for a long time. Proud to be your friend. Congratulations.
DT, my man, what's up, buddy? I just want to say congratulations on an amazing career. Man, every day I enjoy practicing with you, playing with you, being your teammate, being your brother. So grateful for you. Grateful to come in the same time as you, learn with you, grind with you, be able to have a lot of ups and downs. But man, I always trusted, looked up to, loved playing with, consider you a friend, a brother, a great teammate. So proud of you, everything you've accomplished, your hard work, your dedication, your passion to the game, but also the type of person you were. Loved always just being around you, being with you. You made other people's lives better because they were in your presence, and I think that is really cool. So DT, I want to say congratulations. You're a stud, you're a hero to many, and you're a brother to me, and I appreciate you. God bless you, brother.
Such a phenomenal career there for Demaryius Thomas. And check out the tweet here. Celebrating your deal with the Washington football team. In his 9 games for the Dolphins last year, Fitz's numbers actually outperforming the combined production from all of Washington's quarterbacks in 2020. And as head coach Ron Rivera notes, Fitz's previously noted experience is paying off.
Watching Ryan Fitzpatrick, here's a guy that comes in and he's learning another new offense. He's already got it. He's a veteran guy, very bright, very smart football.
All right, let's kick off another QB21 conversation here, focusing in on Ryan Fitzpatrick. Most consecutive seasons in the NFL missing the playoffs. Fitz now has 16, got so close a few years ago with the Jets. Perhaps he could lead the Washington football team back to the playoffs for another season. As we bring David Carr and Mark Ross back into the conversation here. DC, let's look at Ryan Fitzpatrick in particular here. What are your expectations for him as the Washington football team starter this season?
Well, candidly, my expectations are through the roof because I want to see Fitzpatrick and Fitzmagic in the playoffs. I mean, come on. The guy's had like almost a 2-decade stretch where he hasn't gotten a chance, but I just think the guy's so much fun to watch. And I think that if you can put him in a situation that he's in right now, I mean, early on in his career, he's going to keep everybody in the game. And we've seen him go through stretches of 5-6 games, throughout his career where he's better than anybody in the league, and then he kind of falls off, has a 4-interception game, and then we go back to normal. But I think that this is different because he has, statistically, a top 5 defense by all regards. Sometimes they're even better than that. Top 2, maybe even top defense in the NFL coming back this year. But you had a guy like Adam Humphries, who's one of his buddies, a guy that's the reason he signed with Washington, because he played with him at Tampa Bay. He trusts the guy over the middle. You already have, you got Curtis Samuel, you got Terry McLaurin. I think they have some pieces with that defense where he can sit back and say, we can score, yeah, we can be aggressive, but I also have the ability to maybe have a possession or 2 extra. We're already a division-winning football team here. I think they're going to win it this year. I'm excited to watch him play. I hope he doesn't fall off too far physically so he can still have one last run at this thing, Mark.
Well, David, you're speaking from your heart there, and that's with scouting. You got to speak with your eyes and with the data at hand. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I expect mediocrity because that's what he's shown us in 16 seasons and 38 years old with 9 different teams, 0 playoff appearances, and 30 more losses than wins in his career. So you have to use the data at hand, and that is that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to give you exactly that. There's the wonderful things he does being a leader and his intelligence. And I'm not just saying that because he's a Harvard guy and a Princeton guy. I'm a Princeton guy. But the intelligence doesn't correlate to winning. And that's what you want in the NFL, is a quarterback who is going to help you win. And in my view, Washington made a mistake because I think they're going to have the best defense in the NFL with the addition of first-round draft pick Jamin Davis, the signing of William Jackson at the corner from Cincinnati to go with that front that we talked about. No is so lethal. And I think they made a mistake in rolling the dice with a guy who has proven that he is not a winner. And I think with everybody loves him so much, they kind of overlooking the fact that he just hasn't won. And so I expect Washington to be in the mix just because of their defense, and they're going to have to win games like that. And the offensive coordinator's like, hey, Ryan, don't throw those balls, those bad interceptions. But can he do that at this point? Yeah. I don't think he can.
Yeah, certainly with Fitzpatrick as the starter. I mean, even with him as the starter, you figure that second-ranked defense from a year ago will figure prominently into any number of wins that the WFT will accumulate next season. And wins, the topic of discussion that we want you guys at home to weigh in on. Let us know. Head over to NFL Total Access on Instagram and make your voice heard. How many wins in 2021 for Washington? Are they going to get back into that 5 to 8 range, to the 9 to 12 range? How many does it take to win the NFC East this year? Let us know over on Instagram at NFL Total Access. All right, Alex Smith leading Washington to 5 wins in his 6 starts last year. Big reason why Washington claimed the NFC East crown in Ron Rivera's first season as the head coach. And both men, Smith and Rivera, with their own personal battles in earning that team distinction a year ago, something wideout Terry McLaurin observed firsthand.
I think that was which was so unique for our team last year is him and Coach Rivera were so unique in what the adversities they were going through last year. And it was a little similar in the sense just obviously Coach Rivera is dealing with cancer, but Alex Smith was dealing with a life-threatening injury. And you know, just the way they approach practice, like I said, you never would have known anything was wrong with them, by the way. They never had a feel sorry for me moment. They never really had moments where they were like, they were going to use what they were going through as an excuse. They were always going to try to put their best foot forward. And one thing with Alex, he was just cool, man. Like you come in the huddle when you see 11 coming in and you feel like
MVP Aaron Rodgers and Super Bowl MVP Tom Brady. Chicago is not favored in either of those games, but my model gives them a better chance of beating the division rival Packers at home. The stretch concludes with pick'em games against the San Francisco 49ers at home and a road contest against Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. The good news for the Bears, they have a Week 10 bye to recover from their most difficult stretch of the season. The Detroit Lions are one of 2 teams, along with the Los Angeles Chargers, who have their toughest 4-game stretch in weeks 1 through 4 this season, immediately challenging new head coach Dan Campbell and quarterback Jared Goff.
Here we go, boys. Here we go.
The Lions start with a home game against a likely healthy San Francisco 49ers team who was ravaged by injuries in 2020, before traveling to Lambeau Field for a game against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Detroit then hosts Lamar Jackson and the Ravens on a fast track indoors, something that benefits the Ravens' offensive speed. The Lions' tough start continues with 2 more road division games, in Week 4 in Chicago and Week 5 in Minnesota, meaning the Lions play all 3 of their divisional road games in the first 5 weeks of the season. The Green Bay Packers are hoping to have reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers under center for the entire 2021 season, but especially during their most difficult 4-game stretch from Week 7 to 10. The stretch starts with a game against the defending NFC East champion Washington football team and Defensive Rookie of the Year Chase Young. The Packers then have 3 straight games against elite mobile quarterbacks in Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson. Assuming Aaron Rodgers is playing, the game in Arrowhead against the Chiefs is the lone game of the stretch where Matt LaFleur's team is not favored according to my model.
Great call. Hey, great execution.
The Minnesota Vikings' toughest 4-game stretch of the 2021 season comes in weeks 8 through 11, with matchups against 4 marquee starting quarterbacks.
It's a heavyweight fight tonight. You hear me? Let's see if I can last 12 rounds today.
The stretch begins after Minnesota's Week 7 bye with a matchup against Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, before a trip to face off against former MVP Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in Baltimore. The Vikings then travel all the way across the country to face Offensive Rookie of the Year Justin Herbert and the Chargers in Los Angeles, before hosting reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
Good start. Now you got to sustain and keep going.
Whoever can navigate these stretches with minimal damage has the best shot to capture the division.
All right, back now with David Carr and Mark Ross. We heard from Cynthia there. The toughest stretch for the Green Bay Packers would be made even tougher if, Mark, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers don't figure out a way for him to return, something we feel like at this point will happen. But in the case that it doesn't, and he's not back for the Packers, Mark, how would you gauge the strength of this NFC North division?
Well, Red, I think it'll look similar to last year, the other three teams. The Bears, I think, with Justin Fields are going to be fantastic in the future. But this year, they look like a 500 team. Same with Detroit. They'll be a little better. And Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, everything will have to go right for them to kind of be a double-digit win team. So I'm going to still look at the Packers as the favorite in the division, and that's because of I believe in Jordan Love. I've liked his talent coming out. He's had a year to sit and learn from Aaron Rodgers and learn the system with no pressure. And now I believe in his talent as a playmaker for that offense. Don't forget, they still got Devontae Adams and Jones in the backfield. Bakhtiari is coming back. Jenkins is one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. So they have a lot of players and a lot of pieces on that offense where Jordan Love doesn't have to carry them. Of course, he's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. No one is. But I like Jordan Love's talent to get this team to win that division, possibly in the playoffs and into the future.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I think that whether it's Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are still going to win that division. I think it's probably going to be maybe a little bit closer, maybe with the Bears, if Andy Dalton and Bill Lazor can maybe figure something out and kind of rekindle what they had in Cincinnati for a little bit of a stretch there for about 20, 24 games. They were pretty good on offense. So if that defense can play well, and then Justin Fields, if he comes out, and you know how that works, we can just get hit in the face by just this dynamic quarterback, and he can just be a guy that just blows everyone's socks off and takes that team and starts to compete. And if Jordan Love's the quarterback, maybe that gap's a little bit closer. But if Aaron Rodgers is still the quarterback for the Packers, I think it's going to still be a very similar situation to what it was last year. He's the MVP of the league. He's the most dominant player that you can have in Matt LaFleur's system, and he's literally perfect for it. So if he comes back, it's going to be some of the same. But if it's Jordan Love, and I love Jordan, but I think that it could be a little bit closer with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, maybe the gap's a little bit closer, but with if Rodgers comes back, I mean, you certainly feel like this is the Packers' division to lose. And continuing our look around the NFL division by division with Cynthia Freeland, who's going to put her game theory to work with the NFC South. You can certainly read and share more, NFL.com/game theory, as Cynthia will lay out the toughest 4 games.
Or player is set for a defensive breakout in the 2021 season. Mark, we'll start with you.
Well, Kim, I'm going to go with both a team and a player, and that's the Washington football team and their first-round draft pick from Kentucky, the linebacker Jamin Davis. We already know that Washington defense last year was spectacular, second in the NFL in yards given up, 4th in points per game. We know about Chase Young and Daron Payne up front. They signed William Jackson in the offseason, the corner, to even bolster the secondary. But now what they were missing was a playmaking linebacker. And in my view, they got the most explosive, productive linebacker in the draft in Jamin Davis. And as in the scouting world, you always want to have the best talent when you have a first-round pick, or any pick for that matter, but it's also about the fit. And I thought that Jamin Davis, with his talent and the fit with the Washington defense, was perfect. Here's a guy that those guys up front will wreak havoc. He can just go chase the field and run and clean up plays. We know about Ron Rivera's defense in Carolina, how much he relied on Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis and the impact they had. I look to see Jamin Davis have a similar impact and will break through to be the rookie of the year on defense, and the Washington defense have a breakthrough to be the best defense in the NFL, Kim.
Hey, Mark, real quick, I would think that for a rookie linebacker, that Washington defense is a great landing spot because, as you noted, they've got great talent around him.
No question, Kim, and that's when I talked about the talent and the fit, where he just has to go in. He doesn't have to, make the calls or have to be the number one guy. I mean, he's just really filling a role for what they're missing, and that was speed at the linebacker position, explosiveness at the linebacker position, and that's what he does best.
Cynthia, who you got?
Well, I went with secondaries because I looked at that Browns secondary last season, and this was a team that was already very good. They obviously went to the playoffs. But then one area that they were kind of missing was, like, defending that deep pass. So they went out, and, of course, they got John Johnson from the Rams, one of my, I went to BC, right? So there's my BC alum. Then in the draft, they doubled down on this strategy. They got a corner out of my other alma mater because I've got to, it's all about me, obviously. And that's Northwestern's Greg Newsome. And then, of course, they get Grant Delpit back, and he wasn't there last season. He was injured. So their secondary is going to look completely different this season. I love the strategy of adding kind of more of a veteran player with more of a rookie player so that you really get both aspects. And then another team with secondaries, because I had to do twice the homework here. Obviously, the Carolina Panthers. They had A.J. Boye come to the team this offseason. They got him in free agency, and then they doubled down on that strategy with J.C. Horn, who was their #1 guy off the board from the corner position. So they got the guy they wanted. They didn't have to maneuver to get him. It's a really interesting strategy when you can double down with A.J. Boye, who is a known entity. So for me, those two things, especially in that division, are going to be a key differentiator for a team that was kind of on the cusp, went out and got a new quarterback. Now you double down and help him out with that secondary.
Jane, what are you thinking?
Well, Mark went linebacker. I'm also going to go linebacker. Go ahead and give me Isaiah Simmons out of Arizona. Now, all of us that were at Combine when it was actually in person heard the scuttle around this guy, and he sort of underperformed given some of the lofty expectations for him. 54 total tackles, 2 sacks, 1 interception, but he listened to the Cardinals talk about him. They say that they loved how he came on towards the end. And by the way, they went and got him some help. Zaven Collins at the 16th pick, and it was Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach, who talked about how beautiful these 2 linebackers are going to be for them. Well, also what's beautiful is Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden, J.J. Watt. And then when you look at the division that they're playing in, San Francisco likely going to go rookie quarterback. Seattle, bad offensive line. Rams, let's see how they look as a result of getting Matthew Stafford. Now, they do have an offensive line that has played together and has been to all the playoff games and, of course, the Super Bowl. Well, let's see how they gel together. But I think given the help around him and also the fact he learned as many as 6 different positions on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe they'll find a lane that he can stay in. But I think that when we just talk about some of the opponents and where he was coming on last year, he could have turnovers and be a difference maker this year.
Jane, can you even imagine last year with the COVID challenges, how much was on Simmons' plate with those being trained in 6 different positions? I think it's a great pick by you because I can't even imagine that part of it.
That's really a great point. And if you talk to a lot of these guys that, we had lofty expectations for, that was probably the biggest challenge for a lot of these rookies. So many high expectations. And when you're asking a guy to play so many different positions, I mean, Kim, we know this when we talk about the Cowboys in the NFC East. They changed their defensive scheme, and even those guys said the scheme wasn't necessarily hard to learn. We heard Leighton Vander Esch say this recently. It wasn't the scheme, it was not getting the reps. So I would imagine Isaiah Simmons, he's getting the minicamp, the OTAs under his belt, and then you started seeing him coming along towards the end of the season. To your point, I think this could be good for him.
My Nittany Lion pillow is actually my couch, but it's not just because of that, Jane. I think the Dan Quinn defense is poised for a breakthrough in his first year as coordinator in Dallas, and I think Micah Parsons might have something to say about that. So we'll see how that goes, but very intriguing answers to this question because we always talk quarterbacks, but these defenses are going to have a lot to say about what happens this 2021 season. So there we go.
Well, and real quick, Kim, I wanted to say Micah Parsons, but because I cover the team, I didn't want people to think that I was going in and just choosing him. But here's what I'll say about your Nittany Lion. He's almost like the little brother that wants validation from. Listen to the Cardinals talk about him. They say that they loved how he came on towards the end. And by the way, they went and got him some help. Zaven Collins at the 16th pick. And it was Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach, who talked about how beautiful these 2 linebackers are going to be for them. Well, also what's beautiful is Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden, J.J. Watt. And then when you look at the division that they're playing in, San Francisco likely going to go rookie quarterback. Seattle, bad offensive line. Rams, let's see how they look as a result of getting Matthew Stafford. Now, they do have an offensive line that has played together and has been to all the playoff games and, of course, the Super Bowl. Well, let's see how they gel together. But I think given the help around him and also the fact he learned as many as 6 different positions on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe they'll find a lane that he can stay in. But I think that when we just talk about some of the opponents and where he was coming on last year, he could have turnovers and be a difference maker this year.
Jane, can you even imagine last year with the COVID challenges, how much was on Simmons' plate with those being trained in 6 different positions? I think it's a great pick by you because I can't even imagine that part of it.
That's really a great point. And if you talk to a lot of these guys that, we had lofty expectations for, that was probably the biggest challenge for a lot of these rookies. So many high expectations, and when you're asking a guy to play so many different positions. I mean, Kim, we know this when we talk about the Cowboys in the NFC East. They changed their defensive scheme, and even those guys said the scheme wasn't necessarily hard to learn. We heard Leighton Vander Esch say this recently. It wasn't the scheme, it was not getting the reps. So I would imagine Isaiah Simmons, he's getting the mini camp, the OTAs under his belt, and then you started seeing him coming along towards the end of the season. To your point, I think this could be good for him.
My Nittany Lion pillow is actually